So we're going to go through the statute of limitations for civil cases under Florida law. Your state may be different. Most of them will be similar because the policy and the purpose of the statute of limitations is what is a fair period of time for somebody to make a decision as to whether or not they're going to file a civil lawsuit in the situation in which we're talking about. So we're going to go through a ton of them today, but these are all based on Florida law. So make sure you look up, or if you have a specific question, ask in the comments and I can find out what it is in your state. On this episode of The Lawyer You Know, we're going to break down the statute of limitations on all civil claims. I have people ask me all the time, how long do I have to sue for X? How long do I have to sue for what someone else did to me in this situation, in that situation? And the answer is always, it depends. Every case has a different statute of limitations depending on the actions that you want to sue for. The flip side is also true. People ask me, how long do I have to sweat this out for? I got in a car accident, no lawsuit yet. Can they still sue me now? I did construction on this house, it didn't go well. I breached this contract. How long does this person actually have to sue me? Is it over? Is it gone? Did they lose their chance? Which is what the statute of limitations is. The statute of limitations is set for a fairness type of deal where how much time is fair for somebody to make the decision where I am going to file this lawsuit so it doesn't hang over the defendant's head for their entirety of their life. There are some circumstances where there is no statute of limitations, and that's for the worst of the worst actions, like raping a minor, capital sexual battery, things like that, murder. There are no statute of limitations. Yes, those are crimes, but there are also civil elements that you can sue somebody for. But we're going to go through the ones that do have statute of limitations today so you can know how long you have to make this decision, or if you're on the other side, you can know how long you have to sweat it out to where that person loses the right to sue you for what you may or may not have done to them. So let's start out what's near and dear to my heart, and that's tort claims or negligence claims, which is when somebody accidentally does something to injure you. Car accidents, slip and falls, accidental injuries. 4 years, statute of limitations. You've got to make that decision within 4 years of being injured at no fault of your own, but because somebody else did something accidentally. Next is intentional torts like assault and battery. So we're talking about the Deshaun Watson case. He's been sued for assault. Now, all these names keep coming out, more and more names, more and more lawsuits, more and more women affected by this, that they were assaulted by Deshaun Watson. When is it going to end? When can they stop filing these lawsuits against him? And the answer for assault and battery cases, 2 years. So there is a long road ahead for Deshaun Watson where more women can keep popping up based on what he's done. And it's 2 years from when they were last assaulted by him. So if he's still doing it now, which is some of the claims by Busby, is that he's still meeting with these massage therapists and still doing these, assaults to them, well, they can just keep coming out until 2 years after the last assault on the person filing the lawsuit. Next is a breach of contract. This can be a business deal. This can be a construction contract. This can be a non-compete. This can be all sorts of things, and these are written contracts. And for a breach of contract, there is a 5-year statute of limitation for when the breach occurs. So you have a contract, everybody's performing properly, somebody stops doing what they say they're going to do in writing, boom, the clock starts ticking. You have 5 years to file that lawsuit. Next, probate disputes. There's a will, the Anna Nicole Smith situation. She marries the old guy, he dies, the kids want the money, the new wife wants the money, they're going to fight about it. What is the statute of limitations? Probate, there's all sorts of technicalities, but most of the disputes and most of the challenges have to be made within 12 months or 1 year of when those letters of administration are being done by whoever the executor of the estate is. So usually all the disputes have to be done within that 1 year period. Next, let's talk about property damage. Again, this can be a car accident, just talking about when they damage your car. Or it can be a destruction of property, like somebody crashes into your house and breaks your house, or somebody swings a bat and hits your mailbox and breaks your mailbox, whatever it may be, property damage claims. How long do you have to sue for that? 4 years, statute of limitations, from the date that the property damage occurred. Very important to know when the statute of limitations starts to run. For some cases that we've talked about up until this point, it's mostly from when the action occurred. But that's not always the case. Let's talk about a few of those. Malpractice. Medical malpractice and legal malpractice, when a professional is negligent and causes you harm. Either your lawyer totally screws up in your case and doesn't do something that any reasonable lawyer would do, or does something that no reasonable lawyer would do. Same thing in medicine. If the doctor cuts off the wrong leg, medical malpractice, how long do you have for this? 2 years. And you'll notice that's shorter because these professionals have a lot of money to lobby to make sure that we just can't keep this open forever, especially the medical malpractice realm. It's really hard sometimes to get these med mal cases going within 2 years because a lot of times a death could happen or something super serious happens or even something you don't know about happens, and it takes more than 2 years for you to determine that it was actually the doctor's fault, which is why the medical malpractice and the legal malpractice clock starts ticking when you find out or when you reasonably should have found out that the medical malpractice occurred to cause that injury. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. So let's say grandpa dies of a heart attack. Well, you mourn grandpa, you miss grandpa, a year or two goes by and you find out, wait, he went and actually complained to his primary care physician about chest pains and shortness of breath and his left arm hurt and all of the things that said a heart attack was coming. And the primary care physician said, take some aspirin, go home, do nothing. Don't go to the cardiologist. Don't talk to anybody else about it. You're perfectly fine. Stop being a crybaby. And that primary care physician was actually on the hook and should have done something that he didn't. Well, now you found out that there could be a medical malpractice claim. And so now your 2-year clock starts ticking. But a lot of these cases turn on when should you have known? If they cut off the wrong leg, you should know right away when you look down and left leg's gone when it should have been the right leg. You should have known right there, clock starts ticking. But some cases that we call a latent problem that's kind of hidden that you didn't know about can be extended further than that 2 years if you shouldn't have reasonably known about this medical malpractice or legal malpractice until later on in the process. Construction defects, okay? General contractor does some work on your house. It's totally horrible. It's a negligent construction. What do you do? How long do you have to sue them? 4 years. And if you're the contractor and you messed up somebody's house, you've got to sweat it out for 4 years. Unless it's a latent defect. Again, a hidden defect, something that's terribly wrong behind the walls that you could never know about as the homeowner because you weren't there when they built the house or you weren't there when they put the drywall up and there's all this mold and all of the wiring is bad and there's copper wiring and Chinese drywall and whatever that you could never know about as an owner. You get that statute of limitations extended to 10 years, which is a long time. But it's fair, and that's how these statute of limitations are supposed to be set up. What's fair? And you would have no idea that something's going on behind those walls. It's a latent or hidden defect. So you have 10 years, not the normal 4, for those construction defect claims. Okay, what about sinkholes? That's a big thing here in Florida, and that is a 2-year statute of limitations. Wrongful death. That is a car accident claim where somebody dies. That is a medical malpractice claim where somebody dies. When there is a death that is a result of negligence of somebody else, you have a 2-year statute of limitations. Now, again, this can sometimes be extended if you didn't know that they died for that reason. But for the most part, the date of the death is when the 2-year toll starts. There are exceptions and technicalities to almost every statute of limitations where you can try to get extended, but these are all just the norms in Florida. Next is products liability. You get in a car and the airbags don't go off. You're using a machine and it blows up in your face because it was a defective product. It was not created properly. What are the statute of limitations in that situation? Again, technicalities and differences. It all depends. It could be 2 years. It could be 4 years, or it could even be 5 years on certain products liability claims. And sometimes these morph together where you have a wrongful death with that, and you've got to determine what the proper statute of limitations is specifically for your claim. Next, libel and slander. We've talked a lot about this as well from the Deshaun Watson lawsuits and Aaron Donald and other things that go on. If you want to sue somebody for libel or slander, you have to do it within 2 years of finding out about the libel or slander that was done against you that caused you damage. So in the beginning, I said some of the worst crimes don't have statute of limitations, like if capital sexual battery or murder, things like that. Well, rape does have a statute of limitations, and that's a question most people have because it takes so long for some of these victims to come out and actually get the strength to come out against their accuser, to file the lawsuit, to talk to police, whatever it may be. So for rape cases, if you're a minor and you're raped, there is no statute of limitations because children sometimes take forever to remember back what happened. Sometimes they suppress the memories. Sometimes they don't want to talk about it. Sometimes it can change their whole life. So there is no statute of limitations if a minor is raped. But if you're an adult over 18 years of age, then the statute of limitations on rape case is 7 years. And that's the civil statute of limitations. The criminal is totally different. We're sticking to civil here. So to file a claim for money damages based on a rape, if you're over 18, 7 years. Next is false imprisonment. which can be kidnapping, which can be keeping you in a house, locking the door, not letting you leave. All sorts of things that can come into false imprisonment, which sometimes happens in relationships, sometimes happens with kids, all sorts of situations. The statute of limitations of false imprisonment is 4 years. And what you may notice is a lot of these claims have criminal elements. And that's really important. There's the negligence side, which is just the torts that we kind of talked about in the beginning. The criminal actions have a little bit more time. They have 5 years, they have 7 years. Some of them have 4 years. And there's a big deal with that because that's how you make your decision as to whether or not you're going to file this claim. And you have some time, a lot more time than you would expect, because for the most part, if you're injured and you're treating and you know you're going to file a lawsuit against somebody, it doesn't take you 2, 3, 4 years to make that decision. So that's one of the interesting parts of the statute of limitations. A lot of people think it's way too long. But then there's the flip side. Some people think it's too short because sometimes you can't determine what you're going to do making these life-changing decisions. It's a big deal to file a lawsuit. Put yourself and your family through that. You feel like everybody's picking holes and going into your past and going through all your medical records. So sometimes it's really hard to make that decision and people think it's not long enough. So in the comments, let me know. Do you think these statute of limitations are too long or too short? Pick the one that you disagree with the most and let me know. We can create some dialogue below. And if you like these videos, like it please, subscribe to our page so you can be in line for all the future videos we're going to do, and let me know what kind of content you guys want to see.